Ground ball left side. Bustos makes a nice backhanded stop. Throws the second in time to get the force out. Saul Bustos makes an all-star play. That was sensational. That ball appeared headed into left field. Bustos went a long way to his right, was able to glove it, and then off balance, somehow got enough on the throw to gun down the very fleet-footed Cedric Harris at second base. Another major league play there by Saul Bustos. We've seen several in the last couple weeks by Saul. That was outstanding. Scored 6-4 on the put-out. And it brings up Ender Gonzalez, who swings at the first pitch and fouls it back to the screen. And sounds like somebody very upset about that play by Bustos. There's no crying in baseball. I guess in Allentown there is crying in baseball.
There's no crying in baseball, but I sure felt like shedding tears when I began to put together the story of the 2003 Brockton Rox season. When we last talked, as I signed off on episode 20, I told you that I needed some time to go through a huge box of tapes and memorabilia. So I opened the box labeled Brockton 2003 that I've been carrying around since 2003, and I felt like I was punched in the gut by Mike Tyson. The tapes from the entire first half of the season were not in there. I've looked everywhere. I cannot begin to tell you how frustrated I am about this. Not only were those tapes needed to properly tell this story, but there were some keepsake moments in there that are now completely lost in time, like tears in rain. So, as a result, we will zip through the first half of the season much faster than intended. The good news is the second half of the season is pretty darn amazing, and most of those tapes survived. So, let's set the stage. Ed Noddle would return for his 24th season managing a professional baseball team, his second for the Rox. However, gone were both his coaches, part-time batting coach Pat Bowen and pitching coach Rich Sever. Despite a lofty team earned run average of 4.77 and a staff that allowed 73 home runs, Sever was able to find a job in affiliated ball with the Milwaukee Brewers organization. I had a good working relationship with Rich. He passed along a lot of great information that I used on the air, explained a lot of coaching decisions to me, and even expressed frustration at times about his relationship with manager Ed Noddle. Now, Ed was a former pitcher and was much more hands-on with his pitchers than his position players. Rich seemed to think that Ed limited his own responsibilities as a coach and insinuated that there was a bit of professional jealousy of Rich having made it to the major leagues. So there was definitely some tension there. Rich did have a bit of that cocky attitude that you find in a lot of ex-big leaguers, but I enjoyed his company. And one day when I was a bit tired and sore from having gotten up at the crack of dawn to push tarp after a night game, Rich called that a reality check. He said our current reality is we are a long way from the major leagues, and he was right. He said he would tell himself that during every long bus ride, every inconvenience suffered along the way. Well, one last Rich story. We had just arrived in Quebec for a series and decided to look for a bank so we could exchange our U.S. currency into Canadian. Now, Rich's last name is Sever, French. In fact, one of his nicknames as a player was Frenchie. So I assumed that maybe he could read and speak a little bit of the language, right? So we spotted a building. It looked like a bank, so I followed Rich in, and there were a lot of people seated around in this room, and there was one of those little gizmos where you walk up and tear off a piece of paper, and it has a number on it, and you wait for your number to be called. So we got a number and took a seat, and after about 15 minutes of waiting and observing, it became pretty obvious that we weren't in a bank. I still don't know where we were. It was probably some government licensing building or something. I look at Rich, I go, Way to go, Frenchie. It's probably why he never returned my calls after the season. But nevertheless, Rich has stayed employed as a coach all these years, and I wish him the best. So it was out with the old and in with the new. Ed's new staff would be pitching coach John Duffy and batting coach Chris Miyake. John had played college ball at South Alabama under former big leaguer Eddie Stanky, pitched 6 seasons of minor league ball, and had been a pitching coach for the Cubs and Devil Rays organization and for several independent clubs. He appeared to work more cohesively with Ed than Rich had. Chris, a former middle infielder who had played 4 seasons in the Pirates organization and 4 seasons of independent ball, now had his sights set on becoming a manager. At 29 years old, he figured to relate better to some of the younger players. Yes, the Rox had suffered through a losing season in 2002, but they had a solid nucleus of players to build upon. The thinking had been if the Rox just had a slugger for the middle of the lineup, all would be well. And they finally landed big Jermaine Swinton in a blockbuster deal, but it was far too late in 2002. Swinton appeared to have tweaked a knee and failed to produce in the final weeks of the season, but he was being brought back and fingers were crossed. If Swinton's knees would limit him to DH duties, first base still needed to be dealt with. Trevor Hall had done well as a rookie, decent offensively, handled the position adequately defensively, but he was not brought back in 2003. Trevor spent the next 4 seasons playing independent ball, mostly in the Frontier League. The new guy being brought in to play first base was not a first baseman. In 5 seasons of professional baseball, Australian Craig Lewis had compiled an impressive record of 20 wins, 13 losses as a pitcher with a 3.24 earned run average, but he had never advanced beyond Double-A ball with the New York Yankees or Montreal Expos. Now, he would try his luck as a batter, playing first base and outfield. It was well worth the Rox giving him that shot, since his position change meant he would be considered a rookie, not a veteran. At second base, Carlos Rosario had of course been dealt for Swinton last season, so Mike Davis would get a shot starting at second base with help from super utility player Mike Torres, who could play any position on the field. The left side of the infield was still solid with all-star Saul Bustos returning at shortstop and Jake Daubert at third base. Catching was also set, with both starting catcher Mel Rosario and his backup Mike Landry also returning. The outfield had some question marks. Rox MVP Chris Cosby had signed with the Milwaukee Brewers, Dan Graham had retired, and none of the other outfielders had been invited back except rookie Ben Beck, who had played 7 games near the end of 2002 but would not make the team in 2003. The Rox' new outfield would include the very talented Nestor Smith, a Venezuelan who had put up some good numbers in affiliated ball, making it to Double-A with the Minnesota Twins. Also, Bobby Brown and rookie Steve Booker had been signed, along with Ben Johnstone and Willie Edwards. The starting pitching rotation in 2002 featured Joey Baker, Mike Marchesano, Chris Hill, Mike Fisher, and Kevin Goodrum. Baker and Marchesano would return, as would Rodney Allen, who had gone 4-3 with a 2.38 earned run average in 9 starts for the Rox late in 2002, and Scott Martin, who was 1-1 with a 4.29 ERA in 8 games. The Rox really needed one more strong arm, and they found one in lefty Chad Ward, a veteran independent league pitcher who had gone 10-5 with a 2.02 earned run average for Adirondack last season. Connor Brooks would return as the team's closer, and the Rox strengthened their bullpen further with Tony Stutz and later added another hard thrower in Fontella Jones. Many other new arms joined the staff, but based on the rotating door to the bullpen last year, it remained to be seen how many would be given a true chance to stick with the club. So the deck had been shuffled, time for a brand new season, and this is the group who would represent the Brockton Rox in 2003, at least until their first slump. It's doubtful any of these players anticipated what kind of wild ride upon which they were about to embark. Be sure to click the subscribe button to follow my wild and wacky journey with the Brockton Rox, because more episodes are on the way. Thanks for watching.